Howdy, party people. You're gonna hear me coughing a lot tonight, I believe, because my my vocal cords are thrashed because of a persistent cough that I've had. So yeah, dead body. What's city in OC? Dead body in the trunk.
Yes! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Dark secret place.
This radioactivity is coming from
Brian Suits on KFI.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
Dark secret place with Brian Suits on KFI.
He wasn't kidding. He did bomb the S out of them. It is the Dark Secret Place, your weekly look at wars in general, wars in our hemisphere, future wars, maybe in Venezuela, or between the United States and China. We'll get to roboplanes later on tonight, and the life and death of ISIS by popular demand. Some people have said now that the media is caught up to the final acres. I mean, literally the final acres of ISIS. Give us the life and death of ISIS again. So you'll be hearing that next hour. And here's a tie-in. Oh, by the way, the Loyal Wingman program. And the most famous wingman I would submit would be Major Healy from I Dream of Jeannie, because who was Larry? Me was Major Nelson. Larry Hagman was Major Captain. And when it was black and white, they were captains. And then it went to color, and they apparently made it onto the Majors board. So they both got promoted at the same time. But Major Healy, hands down, the most loyal wingman of all time, because he had a shot with Jeannie. I mean, loads and loads of times. I mean, she was fairly naive. She was a mythical creature. And who looked like she was pulling a plow. Am I right? So anyway, Major Healy, the most loyal wingman. And I guess we are to assume that Major Healy never took a swing at that golf ball, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, the Air Force has a program called Loyal Wingman, but it doesn't involve humans. And a significant test flight happened earlier this week. I'll tell you about it. But do all of you recall Y2K and the panic leading up to Y2K? Because for GPS, April 6th could be the Y2K for GPS. And when GPS went into wide industrial use in the early 90s and automotive use, et cetera, it was still just scratching the surface. And there's now GPS in almost every smart device that you're carrying. And I guarantee if your phone has been made in the past 10 years, GPS is built into it. However, April 6th could be D-Day. It could be Y2K all over again. And this is why. If you've never used a map, now might be a good time to learn, especially since a software bug could cause failures in older GPS satellites and devices on April 6th. There we go. That's my panic music. So, and it's interesting that I just see the story today at commando.com, Kim Commando. Yes, there's one or two of people that still actually follow her and go to her website. But this is a true deal. And I say it's portentous that that I find this story today, because if you were following me on Twitter earlier today, or if you're on the YouTube channel, which is unsheepyourself.com. So if you just type in unsheepyourself.com, it'll take you to the YouTube channel. A couple hours ago, I did a explainer on a thing that I found in an antique store today. There's this huge antique store way out past Palmdale, and on the weekends, people go on caravans to there. On religious missions out to this antique store. Huge. It's like a series of airplane hangars or something that are joined together. This big labyrinth antique store. And my daughter likes going because there's always stuff. A couple months ago, we found an old wool letter jacket from the early 60s from Akron High Schools, the Akron Wasps. It was pretty cool, though since then she says it's too itchy. So anyway, today we popped in there, and she found a thing and then another thing. And we're on our way out, and I look on a counter almost at the cashier's, and I see this brown disc. And if for some reason it triggered a memory, it triggered a trivia moment, and I stopped and I picked it up and flipped it over, and it was a compass, not just any compass, but it was the wrist compass made by the Taylor Company that was issued to every single American paratrooper in World War II. It was only made during World War II, and it was made of the material that sort of preceded industrial plastics, which was Bakelite. And you can find old. I used to collect old Bakelite radios. Bakelite was moldable and pressable and all this. And it went out of use because it doesn't like direct sunlight and all that. But so anyway, in World War II, they made these Bakelite liquid-filled compasses for paratroopers. And if you recall Saving Private Ryan, you remember that about a half an hour into the movie, they're in a city that the Germans are still holding, and Ted Danson makes, I believe, an uncredited appearance in Saving Private Ryan as a Pathfinder captain. He was there. He's been there hours before the invasion. Well, he's wearing one because Captain Dale Dye, former KFI air staffer, was the technical advisor on that movie, and he got everything absolutely nat's ass. And yes, the Pathfinders, but most of the troops wore these Bakelite compasses. But I should say that it's way bigger than a watch face. It's about 3/4 the size of a hockey puck, but it's very light. And most troops wore them on their right wrist on their way down. And then when they got on the ground, within a few hours, most people moved it up closer to their chest and put it like through a buttonhole on the upper left breast pocket. But so I'm checking it out, and I take it outside away from metal, and it still works. And it didn't have a price on it. And I go in and I said, "Hey, how much is this compass?" Now you can, if you're a World War II reenactor, I can point to a number of better hobbies for your weekends. But if you do that, then you know that recreation pieces of equipment are available all over the place, right? Well, you can buy one of these World War II compasses in a near new shape for about $130 or $140. This one was not near new shape, but I asked the guy how much for this thing, and he said, "Oh, $4." So I picked up this, of all things, in 2019. I bought a compass. I have a bunch of compasses. I just kind of collect them. I'm kind of a dork. I don't collect them. I just don't lose them once I get them. So anyway, today I got this World War II vintage American paratrooper compass, and I on sheepyourself.com I show it earlier today. Then this story comes in from from a couple of different sources repeating this, that on April 6th, older GPS satellites might have a fail. And when I posted the picture of the compass, someone said, Someone said less than 1% of people today know how to use it. I absolutely agree. Anyway, so here's the story. And if you understand this stuff about integers and computers, you can tweet at Dark Secret Place and explain it to me. If you have never used a map, now might be a good time to learn, especially since a software bug could cause failures in older GPS satellites and devices on April 6th. According to multiple reports, the bug is expected to mimic the much threatened but ultimately uneventful Y2K bug, an issue of the coding of computerized systems predicted to bring down computers in 2000. Here's why. Until the 1990s, computer programs abbreviated 4-digit years as just the last two. So 1998 was 98 because they were trying to conserve the data that had to go into the code, right? And there were people who actually said that when they were writing that code in 1978, they were saying, well, no way this system's going to be in use in 1998. So we're safe here. We don't have to dedicate 4 digits to this string. Many experts believe that on January 1st, 2000, many computers would fail to operate correctly because of that. Several organizations went to great lengths to amend algorithms on the computers so that their networks would recognize 2000 as a leap year. As a result, there were very few incidents. Okay. Fast forward to 2019. Just like the Y2K bug, many experts believe that a similar problem could cause GPS systems to crash on April 6th. According to Commando.com, GPS transmits, quote, accurate dates and times to receivers by providing them with the current week and the number of seconds we are into the week, close quote. At issue is the fact that these timestamps are, now here's the wonky part, as if it hasn't been so far, encoded in a 10-bit field. As a result, the number for the week can only hold 1,024 integer values, causing the week counter to reset to 0 every 1,024 weeks, or around 20 years. The last time this happened was in 1999. The first GPS week was January 6, 1980. The first reset occurred 1,024 weeks later, August 21st, 1999. Most systems updated seamlessly, and the changeover went mostly unnoticed in 1999 because less than 1% of cars, phones, and systems in 1999 relied on GPS for location data and time data. Literally 20 years later, it's by a factor of 100 things that depend on GPS time. Because remember, GPS time is basically atomic time, and it is the most accurate time. Your watch, your smartphone can't be would be overly complex to be connected to the atomic clock, right? Instead, it uses GPS time because that is atomic time. So your phones rely on that for the most basic of functions, which is what time is it? So the second rollover will take place April 6th. The Department of Homeland Security a year ago sent a memo warning federal, state, local, and private sector organizations a GPS device that conforms to the latest standards should not be adversely affect. However, tests of some GPS devices revealed that not all manufacturer implementations correctly handle the April 2019 rollover. So there we go. Stand by. This is going to get way less coverage than Y2K, but you'll see it turning into an issue as we get closer to April 6th. So there you go. And I have some plugger anecdotes, cute anecdotes when we come back. I said plugger. GPS anecdotes. I just use an ancient term when we come back. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian sits in here until 11 o'clock. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. Michael Chapay with the news.
A man and a woman have been shot in Pomona. The woman has died. Both people were stabbed in the upper body at around 1:45 this afternoon.
It is here or 8:45?
Police said the stabber
Oh.
was seen running away from the scene and was then arrested. The lifeguards in San Diego say 2 people have been killed in a hang gliding accident near the Torrey Pines Blinder Court beach in La Jolla. Crash happened before 3 this afternoon.
Hey, how come I'm not seeing texts?
R. Kelly's overdue child support of more than $160,000, allowing Kelly to go free from jail in Chicago. The person who paid the money to the Cook County Clerk's Office doesn't want to be identified. Kelly's awaiting trial on sex assault charges. Check out the somewhat rainy forecast and trouble on the river.
Homeowners insurance is boring until you need it. And if you're like most homeowners, you may find that your policy doesn't have the coverage you thought it did. Hippo is changing that
Hey, what happened to the KFI thing?
at up to 25% less than you're currently paying. Checking your
The KFI thing isn't on there anymore.
You can cancel your current policy anytime. So don't wait for disaster to strike.
It's called Atomic Time because it is
That's myhippo.com/.
it is there's an atomic element that's used. It's got a known vibrations per second or whatever. It's the most accurate thing known to man. The compass was filled with kerosene as a dampener. It'll work fine without the liquid, but when you put the liquid in, which is usually odorless kerosene, then the compass is not going to sit there, going like that and giving you that. It actually gets on azimuth a lot faster with that dampener. I know how to refill it. I might refill this with kerosene. Some of them are filled with denatured alcohol, but kerosene is a little more viscous. That's why we did that.
Flow back to Firestone Boulevard. If you're in the Artesia area, some good news for you there. The 91 West at Pioneer Boulevard, that earlier crash has made its way to the right shoulder. Traffic remains a little sluggish.
But yeah, I'm a total compass dork.
In Irwindale on the 210 East.
In Iraq, I got a surveyor's compass, a brass surveyor's compass, and it had to be 50 years old. It was really cool.
Block in the left lane, it's going to be jammed up back to the 79.
Oh, I hear Burbank PD is flying over.
Sponsored by the Ad Council, KFI in the Sky, helps give you
If anyone is around Disney or Warner Brothers, you hear that.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed.
So I talked to Bean today. I thought he was going off air like at the end of the month. He's on the air on K-Rock until the end of the year. So I was going to talk to him tomorrow night, but I'm not gonna now because he's going to be here for a year. So fuck that. I'm not going to help the competition.
Just like the artists, you'll walk the red carpet and experience the iHeartRadio music with front row seats. Open the iHeartRadio app and listen to the iHeartRadio Music Awards station, and you're automatically entered to join us and get some of the best IG photos of your life. Your music, your stations, your podcasts, all free.
Did you know that 1 in 8 Americans struggle with hunger? Yet more than 40% of the food we produce is thrown out. At Ralph's, we know we can do something about this. We're donating more food to local food banks through our partnership with Feeding America. And we're working with World Wildlife Fund to end food waste. But we can't do it alone.
Do I have to tongue punch it?
Creating a world with zero
You prefer a tongue?
waste. Visit thekrogerco.com to learn how you can help.
Rescue Rooter quiz time. Okay, these are the things.
I'm still on Spearhead, the book about the tanker who
Trust me, I've tried.
who
Liquid drain cleaner. If your drain's slow, you want Rescue.
was in the last months of World War II. It's really good.
By the way, Rescue Root is available 24/7 and responds in 60 minutes or less. For your $69 drain cleaning special, dial pound rescue.
I started watching that Formula One Grand Prix series on Netflix last night. Man, that's really good. I'm kind of a dork I don't like motor racing in general, but Grand Prix I do like.
YouTube TV. Watch like a fan.
Hey, here's a fun fact on NATO compasses. There's 6,400 mils. On Warsaw Pact compasses, there's only 6,000.
2-carat 1990, 3-carat 39.90, and 1-carat studs are just $3.99. The Jewelry Exchange also has a full line of lab-grown diamonds at insane prices. And
How much time?
they make to appraise for double. That's right. So big deals. The Jewelry Exchange in Tucson, 714-542-9000, 714-542-9000.
The pioneers slept outside year round.
Gang of Four. I love a man in uniform. Who remembers 1982, huh? Oh, no, wait. I used to live on Fredonia, right above the Baked Potato in Studio City. Actually, I am having it looked at at UCLA. But no, I used to live. I didn't know. I mean, I'd heard of the Baked Potato, and I didn't know where it was in LA. I'd kind of forgotten about it. And then my daughter and I were walking around the neighborhood once, and we walked down Fredonia to a Fat Burger, walked up the street, and I'm hearing music. And the Baked Potato is right there on Lancashire.
What happened? You used to go hours without visiting the bathroom. Now it seems like you're constantly getting up to pee. Listen, the makers of Super Beta Prostate are introducing a new wonder pill. Super Beta Prostate.
But yeah, I'm going to have it looked at. So it's thrashing my voice, obviously.
Call 1-800-257-5251. 1-800-257-5251. 1-800-257-5251.
For official rules and more information about content,
I'm trying to make YouTube think that the stream has stopped.
640.com/rules.
I wasn't into this whole technology explosion. Sorry. But now that I can just ask Alexa to play KFI.
iHeartRadio.
I am all over it.
Of course we can be friends.
Like a boss.
You seem very nice.
KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here till 11 o'clock. And funny, this song from, it's so old, it's from 2 years after the GPS system it logged its first week, which was January 6, 1980. And every 1,024 weeks, it rolls over because it only uses 2 digits for the year. And so it already did that in 1999 on August 21st. The next time will be April 6th, 2019. And so there are those who are saying that probably most systems are hardened. And this is an issue from the actual satellite up there, not in your phone. This is not something that software can fix. The GPS in your phone. And it's astounding to me how tiny GPSs are. If you ever see how your LG or Samsung or iPhone is broken down, there's only like 2 or 3 companies that actually make the little module in China, but they're tiny. And that's how you can embed a GPS in every single phone. And if you turn on location services for every app, then it's using that GPS data that your phone is getting from the GPS satellites. The American system, the GPS system, was the first up, and it was the default system for decades. The Russians have their GLONASS system up. The Europeans are putting theirs up, but ours were the first up, and they're in a high orbit. They don't re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. Occasionally, they'll break or go bluey or whatever. We have to replace them. But the constellation of American GPS satellites are in a very, very high orbit. But of course, they're transmitting at the speed of light. So that's how they're able to precisely target, GPS data can be used precisely in smart weapons and things like that. The first GPS I'd ever even heard of was on a BBC show called The Day the Universe Changed. And the guy, the host, was on a U.S. Navy ship out of Rota, Spain. It was 1981. And he pointed to the GPS system and the antenna, and it was massive. It was absolutely huge. So keep in mind, the GPS signal is very weak. Satellite signals, like for XM radio or whatever, they're all very weak. They're easily jammable down here. The GPS signal is actually a very weak signal. But so the receiver was just huge. Then the first time I saw a man-portable GPS was actually in Desert Shield in the lead up to Desert Storm. When I reported to 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, and I was assigned to a scout platoon as a medic, we had a couple military precision lightweight GPS receivers, or pluggers as we called them, and PLGR. And they served a couple functions. One of them was absolute precise time. Everybody synced their watch to the plugger. Plugger time was atomic time. And the thing was huge. It was as if you were holding up a VCR and looking at a digital readout. It was a tiny screen. It was like, it was 3 characters up and down and about like 40 characters across. And it could give you had to go way deep in this menu. Without seeing it, you had to know the keystrokes to go deep in this menu and change what format the data was giving you. In the military, we use what's called the UTM format, where the world is divvied up into a bunch of pie slices. But the military adds another layer to that, and it's called the MGRS, the Military Grid Reference System. And it gives you just digits. The Air Force does latitude and longitude. They do not care what we on the ground do. They use their own latitude and longitude. So you have to give the Air Force, if you're working with the Air Force, you got to give them lat long. Because they don't know what you're doing when you're giving them a quote 10-digit grid. They don't know what that means. So that was the first plugger I saw, the first GPS receiver I ever saw, and it was massive. And the guy who operated it was like a guru. He was like the platoon guru, because he could absolutely positively give us our location. And there was a really ugly friendly fire incident just a few weeks after, or a few months after we got there, right before we kicked off Desert Storm, where an Apache actually took out a scout vehicle that was way far ahead, and according to what he was told, it shouldn't have been there. And these guys actually didn't have a GPS, and I believe it was like 5 dead when they were hit by hellfire. Next time, a few years later, we started getting issued the new GPS. But by that time, in the mid '90s, you could go to REI, and you could get a Garmin 201 Fortrex. I mean, I had a wrist GPS that I used to take with me into military drills. Because, and we weighed it once, it literally was 4 ounces. In the military, the Rockwell plugger was about 4 pounds. And it had a unique battery and all this BS. And we carried those probably into the early 2000s. And now the new standard military GPS is still way bigger than a civilian GPS. But that's because it has a bunch of encoding software. Because you know that it was Bill Clinton in 1999 who de-scrambled the GPS system. If you were using a GPS as a surveyor up until 1999, it was not letting you get more than 10 meters accuracy. But Clinton turned that off so that the entire world could get down to 1 meter accuracy. So those are your GPS fun facts. When we come back, the Air Force's Loyal Wingman program. No, it's not a bonus program to keep pilots around. It's a new program, in fact, to get rid of pilots. And I'll tell you why right after this. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits here until 11 p.m. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chappé with the news.
It is a murder case now. Now talking on the body of a young girl found stuffed inside a rollaway type duffel bag in Hacienda Heights is now complete. The LA County Coroner's Office has ruled the girl's death a homicide. LA County Sheriff Lieutenant Scott Hoagland says the girl's remains were left on a horse trail near Hacienda Boulevard and Glenmark Drive.
We're looking for any type of witnesses that may have been traveling that area, that may have seen a vehicle pulled over to the side.
There's no word on the exact cause of the girl's death. The dead girl's described as black.
Where are you in Iraq?
8 and 13 years old, still not identified yet. News brought to you by American Vision Windows, an art exhibit called The Strength of Women. It's on display at LA City Hall.
Yeah, I know my voice is my money. And that's where, I have a cough button, and when I do my, when I do my podcast, I edit out, the throat clearing and the coughs. But it's kind of hard to do in radio because you have to keep, you got to ride the cough button. In fact, let's take a quick tour of the KFI board. As you see, even though KFI is the #1 radio station in America, we have a pretty crude, worn out board, and they're
shoulders.
Coast Guard Petty Officer Brian McCrum says it took several agencies to get everyone to safety, and at this time of year, it's really
That's how I talked to Michael Chappé. Right there. That's how I talked to the studio. Can you see Josh? Josh is right there. Michael Chappé is in there. See? And that is a quick tour. Yeah, it's actually not a joke. You know, Gary and Shannon are the ones who get to say it out loud. But yeah, this place is pretty gross if you follow Handle. When I fill in for Gary and Shannon, it's it's not pretty. And that's why I pre-taped the third hour. Ronnie sent me his Petros and Money. Ronnie Fascio sent me the Petros and Money playlist from Friday.
Southland weather from KFI. It's going to be cloudy, then a chance of some light rain after midnight. Lows in the 40s for the most part. And then a good chance of rain, about 50% tomorrow, 30 to 40% chance of rain Monday, dry Tuesday. Be on the partly cloudy side. Sunny and warmer Wednesday. It's every day through next Saturday. We lead local live from the KFI 24-hour news room by Michael Chauvin.
The biggest stars in music are coming together for the 2019 iHeartRadio Music Awards on Fox. Hosted by the Masked Singer winner T-Pain, and with can't-miss performances by Ariana Grande, Alicia Keys, John Legend, Casey Musgraves, Garth Brooks.
You care about your car? Then check this out.
Plus, a special appearance by Taylor
See how that slides right off? That is because we are using a hybrid wax sealant spray, Mirror Shine, on the car.
Are you tired?
Can anyone name that tune?
Aren't enough of a deterrent. Call pound 250 right now. Sloman's is a company that's been around for about 100 years. It's still family owned and operated. And they will get you an alarm installed in your home for free. It's a sophisticated, customized system. About $1,500
What's that? Okay. Yeah.
If the robots take over, at least you'll know how to get more stimulating talk. Just ask Google Home to play KFI.
KFI AM 640 more stimulating talk. It is The Dark Secret Place. Until 11 o'clock, Brian Suits in here. Also streaming live at unsheepyourself.com. Unsheepyourself.com. Well, the Air Force announced the Loyal Wingman program a little over 2 years ago. And a couple companies have responded with vigor. One of them, to be honest with you, is a little mysterious, but the Loyal Wingman program is the fruition of the realization, or the fruition of years of drone experience that the United States has, leading up to the Northrop UCAS, Unmanned Combat Air System, the X-47, which was the first unmanned aircraft to land and take off from an aircraft carrier. Obviously, the idea that artificial intelligence could do what a naval aviator could do after several $1 million of training made the Navy hate the damn thing. And so the Navy is committed to buying this very large, it looks like a little brother to the B-2, but instead of a cockpit, there's a single air intake for the single engine. The Navy is committed into developing it into a air-to-air refueler, which is a glorious task that no naval aviator likes doing, but someone's got to do it. Well, now no one has to do it, because now you can have an unmanned system up there at 10,000 feet or 20,000 feet, and you just sidle up behind it and you refuel. And so good use, very practical. But that doesn't obviate, it doesn't erase the fact that there are many combat missions that human beings don't have to fly. In fact, some of the most dangerous combat missions, for instance, developed in the Vietnam War, was the so-called Wild Weasel platform. And that would be taking an airplane, putting a pilot in the cockpit, and telling him, go find North Vietnamese surface-to-air missiles, usually by them being shot at you, and once found, please destroy those, because there's a big airstrike coming in an hour behind you. And it was a very, very ballsy mission, and it was not something that the Russians had anticipated when they designed the surface-to-air missiles, that they were the early adopters and most adopted by foreign military, and the Russians had tremendous combat experience, courtesy of the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps in Vietnam. But the American innovation of taking a fighter plane and turning it into a dedicated anti-surface-to-air missile aircraft caught the Russians at somewhat of a surprise. Well, okay, so fast forward to 2014, 15, 16, we realize now, well, if the purpose of that is to make the enemy turn the radar on so that you can get a lock and fire a missile back, if we have unmanned systems that can do that, why not do that? And why not program in evasive maneuvers? Why not pack it with electronic countermeasures? And at the end of the day, if there never was a human being on board, you don't have to put in an ejection seat, all that life support. And if it's shot down, then you're out $1 million. You're not out $30 million and 2 crewmen. So why not develop these into missions, 4 missions like that? So this is called the Loyal Wingman program, and it would work basically like this: that a 1 or 2 manned plane element would take off, and then these unmanned combat aircraft loaded with weapons or electronic devices, whatever, they take off and get in formation with them. And then the aircraft can be changed in flight or whatever, but they can then fly a mission profile. Like, for instance, you can have one aircraft that does nothing but fly 30 miles ahead of you, and it tries to scare up the air defense. It tries to spoof the air defense into thinking that it is 20 aircraft, and this is the strike. And then you get the enemy to turn the radar on, or whatever. Well, so one aircraft that is very promising is the the Kratos unmanned aerial system. Kratos is the name of the company. The U.S. Air Force Air Research Laboratory have developed the XQ. Q is the designation for an unmanned aircraft, like a drone, a target drone out of Oxnard or Port Hueneme, the QF-16. Yes, we are using F-16s as aerial targets. We destroy them. So anyway, the XQ-58 is called the Valkyrie. And that the Boeing has not named theirs, but not officially, but they do call it the Boeing. I get this right. The Boeing Air Power Teaming System, BATS. And both of these aircraft is funny because the Valkyrie and the Boeing aircraft. The Valkyrie looks like an F-35 where the pilot is ejected. It looks like a cockpitless F-35. And it's approximately 2/3 the size of an X-35. And because it doesn't have oxygen, life support, and ejection seat, it can carry more munitions, the whole thing. Boeing has been working with Australia. Australia is extremely interested in this because as the Australians look around their part of the globe, they see right off the bat that the most likely near-peer competition or adversary would be China. And they will not match China in, plane for plane or pilot for pilot. And so the Australians are very interested in this technology because it's cheaper than standing up 10 more squadrons of manned F-18s. So Boeing is taking the wraps off of its latest combat drone. They presented their model of the Loyal Wingman UAV at the Australian International Air Show. The official Boeing release goes on about the performance and the whole thing. The Boeing Air Power Teaming System will provide a disruptive advantage for Allied forces' manned and unmanned missions. You could, for instance, you can make some of them do nothing but jamming. You can have others loaded with air-to-air missiles that actually would be slaved to your airplane. So you could tell your loyal wingman to go 20 miles to your south and begin orbiting, and as you detect enemy fighters, you vector the unmanned plane towards those fighters and have them do as much damage as he can. He gets shot down. Oh, well, no pension, no orphans, no widow, no nothing. So the Kratos unmanned aerial system, the Valkyrie, it just flew on Wednesday at Yuma Proving Grounds in Arizona. And so the video was released. Nothing really special. I mean, it's just sort of banking and flying around a desert and stuff like this. But it is a revolution because while the rest of the world is catching up to the United States in ground commanded drone technology, the rest of the world is way behind us in actual aerial systems that can follow along and actually become part of a combat mission. So that revolution started this week with the Air Force Loyal Wingman program, Boeing and another company in it with both the. All right, when we come back, blackouts in Venezuela. They're building something in North Korea. This corresponds with the summit in Hanoi falling apart. But what is it that they're building? And the final days, the last final days of ISIS are upon us. That and more coming up. It is The Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here till 11, KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chappé with the news. Here is the Valkyrie. See, that's the intake there. And here's the Boeing. Hey, Brian Sitzer for Solar Max. You may have heard that some utility companies have stopped their solar rebate programs. SolarMax Technology is so committed to making solar affordable and getting them panels on your crib that they're making up for lost utility savings with their own Solar for All rebate. Yes, we are doing this into March because it was such a hit in February. If you're a homeowner who wants to learn more, come to the News and Brews remote broadcast for Gary and Shannon at Old Stump Brewing Company in Pomona, Friday, March 15th. So that is next Friday. From 10 to 2, Gary and Shannon show at Old Stump Brewing Company. Bring as many bills as you can from your utility. Go to their website, print them out in PDF, bring them there. If you're one of the first 50 homeowners to come, so bring your recent electric bill that's over $100. SolarMax will buy you your first drink, your first Gary and Shannon beer. Through March 31st, SolarMax's Solar for All rebate, combined with federal tax incentives, is your last chance to get savings of up to 35%, saving you an average of $7,500 off your solar energy system. So don't miss your chance to save up to $7,500 on solar. Pay the money, get it on your roof, start saving money as the sun comes out. Get a free drink on SolarMax. Call now because Solar for All expires March 31st. Dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say Solar Max, pound 250 Solar Max, or check out solarmaxtech.com. Subject to credit approval, CSLB number 972048. The X47 UCAS, they store it outside. You can see it on the ring road around Palmdale Airport on the north end. As you get close to Northrop, it's just sitting out there. And they do fly it from time to time. They tend to fly it early morning, and then they land it before the sun comes up. Because the word is that the Air Force has a half-scale B-21 Raider that is already flying around at night, and that there are some rumors that what is identified as an X-47 is actually this 2/3 or 3/4 scale B-21. So we'll see. But there's no doubt that the B-21 is nearing its first flight, and if you didn't know what it was, most people would look at it and see a B2. Here's the thing about, getting even on it. The main thing is you don't pay for it up front like you used to. You used to buy it, and then, of course, it took 20 years to amortize out, right? And by then, the panels were dead. Well, the panels last way longer, but when you go with like SolarMax, you start a plan, they install the panels, and you start the utility savings immediately. So in my case, my monthly payment is less than what I was paying SoCal Edison. I was paying SoCal Edison about $360 to $400 a month. My monthly payment to SolarMax is about $220. So right off the bat, I am putting $200 a month in my pocket. Because because we're usually by 10 a.m. starting here probably in April. By 10 a.m. I'll be putting power back on the grid. And the other deal is, like you learn, don't run your dryer at high noon, because of the stepped pricing. Run your dryer when you go to bed at 11 o'clock. Your fridge has to stay on all day long, but you learn little things like that, and you can save. So we anticipate saving about $3,000. So there we go. And we're really lucky down here because it makes sense here. Like up in Seattle, you're an idiot if you do solar in Seattle. Well, Ed, then I guess solar doesn't make sense for you, right? Punch yourself. Go on, we'll wait. Thank you.
Find out how to get a free bottle of Noxitril. Call 1-800-993-2480. That's 800-993-2480. Free bottles for limited time. So call now. 800-993-2480. That's 800-993-2480.
It's not marijuana, it's CBD. No prescription, 100% legal, and available now at cbdistillery.com. CBD
I'm going to do a little, Allman Brothers.
Heck medicine of USC. Beyond
Yeah, I got it.
You can win a Jaguar XF this Sunday.
Number 4.
Sun's out, fun's out. Pool season opens next week at our Sunset Bar and Oasis Pool. Book your cabana today.
3.
Hit the hay giveaway this Monday. Just earn 500 points on your rewards card when playing your favorite games and take home a Serta allergen barrier pillow. The 11th.
Number
Buffet. A buffet for two plus a canyon view room starting at $109 Monday through Thursday.
and the Casino Resort.
It's now for Flogging Molly, Saturday, March 16th.
Morongo Casino Resort and Spa. Morongo. We're in your car, and now KFI AM 640 may already be in your house. Not sure whether you've been infiltrated? Try asking your KFI.
This is actually a really creepy promo.
I don't know.
Like, infiltrated.
The KFI and iHeart radio station.
KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here until 11 o'clock. And now, finally, the actual life and death of ISIS. ISIS now down to just a few acres. So it's so in the bag in Syria that they're done as a organized terrorist army that General Votel actually came and testified before Congress last week. But he also pointed out that if there are dead enders that haven't had the honor of dying for their caliphate. And the original originators of ISIS were former Iraqi intelligence guys. They formed and organized a frankly very successful insurgency after we overran Iraq. And so that's why when ISIS was formed, it was sort of a stand-up army. They never went through a guerrilla phase. They were, because there was no organized opposition to ISIS, they got to start life as a army. Can they devolve into the type of guerrilla force, urban guerrilla force that was so successful in Iraq in making me, for instance, deaf on the right side? So that is what we'll watch. But there's never been a better head start for counterinsurgency than having these guys up against the ropes, back on their heels, whatever metaphor you want to use, and then track them as they organize. And then, by the way, the other advantage this time is that now that the Iraqis are in charge of Iraq, it's an open secret that many members of Iraqi security forces were anti-American insurgents. And now that they effectively got their country back, you're welcome, and are in charge, they will not be handcuffed by 60 Minutes or Dateline or any of that crap. The Iraqi security forces couldn't care less about what the media thinks about how they get information. Because the average Iraqi says, look, if you've chosen to be a terrorist, who cares how they get the information out of you? You know, if you're doing suicide bombs against our people. Of course, had I said that in 2005, I would probably still be in Leavenworth. Anyway, meanwhile, in Caracas, in Venezuela, power outages is the worst that they have seen in decades, evidently. Power went out across recession-stricken. And by the way, that is really being charitable, calling it a recession. I mean, the inflation is at whatever 12,000%, the whole thing. Thursday afternoon, power went out across the country due to a problem at Venezuela's main hydroelectric plant. The government called it an act of sabotage by ideological adversaries, so that's not been confirmed. But that's what failing governments do, is they blame stepping on their own Johnsons on, unreliable elements or fifth columns or whatever. Meanwhile, China has chimed in, and they have warned the world, but they actually are looking at the U.S. when they say it, They're telling the rest of the world to stay out of Venezuela's domestic affairs. So that would be the third adversary of the United States saying that. That would be you can add Iran and Russia saying it first, and those two countries have a bone to pick, have a dog in the fight. The Iranians are getting uranium out of Venezuela, but the Chinese. Basically, the Venezuelans owe them big time, and they have no cash to pay them. And so the Chinese have a vested interest in this regime staying in power because that is how they're being repaid for their loans to Venezuela. I can tell you this. If you called President Xi and you said, look, on the QT, any debts that you have will be honored by the next government, and the next government won't mismanage all the free oil that they're standing on, the world's largest known reserve of oil. So you're more likely to get repaid with a more American-friendly government. The Chinese would probably say, I, for one, welcome foreign interference in Venezuela. But so anyway, Juan Guaido is still there. He's still effectively irrelevant because until the guys with the guns start either staying home or in their barracks or turning their guns on Maduro, there's not going to be any change in Venezuela. Though I'll tell you what, starving people and now turning their electricity off, this might be what topples them over. But the Venezuelan people have been dealing with deprivation now for some 2 years. Food, their money's worthless, and all that. Now the fact the electricity's out, I don't know how much of an effect that's going to have. So there is that. All right, next hour, the life and death of ISIS. There is still a pulse in the corpse. It's not getting up off the table. Don't worry. But the death knell of ISIS. And by popular demand, the boats of Cherbourg, one of the most brash moves by Israeli secret services of all time. An amazing story in the third hour. We'll take a deep dive into the boats of Cherbourg, France. That more coming up in hour number 2 of The Dark Secret Place. Brian sits here until 11. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. All righty. I'll do a video update tomorrow morning with more visual aids. And of course, everything at unsheepyourself.com is archived. So if there is a last round of questions, I'm going to rest my voice. Any questions? Anything? Yeah, I've done a live show of the Thousand Oaks Dave and Buster's. I'll do another one. The Coyote is doing great. Lucille is doing great. She really couldn't eat for 48 hours, but now that she's eating fresh eggs. I mean, I'm scrambling like 4 or 5 eggs and pouring grated cheddar on it. And so she's eating like a champ. And she is fast AF. I can't believe how fast this dog is. But then again, her playmate is only has 3 feet. Wyatt has 4 legs, but 3 feet. So, all right, then we'll stream tomorrow night for Super Hyper Local Sunday. And we'll talk.